Hey,
So,
hi.
hi,
Who are you?
I'm Dave Rossi.
Our county manager.
I am, and who are
I'm
you?
Tamara Pogue. I'm one of the three county commissioners.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it's nice to see you, Dave.
Yeah, nice to see you. So we just got through a big work session.
We did.
And this one was road and bridge and housing, and we talked about lodging tax, which kind of is has implications for both.
That's right.
So where did you guys come out?
Well, we talked about a lot today. Just to catch everybody up, as we move through the budget process at the county, we start with our draft budget, which we've already talked about, and then we do what we call deep dives. So on the areas where there are particularly knotty or difficult decisions that the board needs to give direction on, we have deep dives. So like Dave said, today we talked about housing and road and bridge and the lodging tax, which the voters gave us an authority to spend some of those dollars on road and bridge moving forward.
90% approval.
That's right,
Yep.
very popular. So let's see, let's start with housing.
Okay.
We have, what I thought was most interesting about the housing budget is that the most effective strategy we have for developing housing in the county is something called Housing Helps, which is basically where we purchase a deed restriction from a homeowner in order to give them the funds they need to purchase that initial house. We spend about $2 to $3 million a year for the past 5 years, and that's generated upwards of 30 units a year almost. And I think what makes it really interesting is that that is the most effective way to buy a deed restricted unit in the county. Far more affordable and effective than the construction of units, for example. But it's a program that rarely gets any attention.
No.
The state won't provide funding to support it. So the first thing we gave direction on today was to continue to invest in that program and save $3 million a year moving forward. The second thing I thought was really interesting about today's conversation is we've been, as a county, investing in an accessory dwelling unit program for a number of years. And as interest rates were incredibly high, we were having a hard time finding the homeowners that could build that ADU unit and deed restrict it for workforce. But good news, as interest rates have come down, it seems like that is a more popular program, or a more feasible program, I should say, for homeowners. And so we are directing staff to maintain $500,000 a year in that moving forward. We also directed staff to continue our hotel leases in terms of Alpine Inn, which is in Frisco, and Wayside. And then we're having more conversations about what we do with 580 Silverthorne moving forward, but that was another arm. And then we also talked a little bit about construction, and we saved some money for construction, both supporting some projects that Town of Frisco and Town of Breckenridge are working on.
So tie it all back together with lodging tax.
Right. So now we as the board have the decision we have to make, because lodging tax originally first of all, it's worth saying that the state requires us by state law to spend 10% of whatever we collect on tourism. So we've used those dollars for signs to try and educate our tourists.
The rec path.
The rec paths, yeah. That's right. And we don't have a choice in that. We have to spend that 10% by state law on tourism. So that leaves us 90% to decide how we spend. Traditionally, we have spent about half of it on childcare and half of it on housing. But since we have two other funds for childcare, we've actually been able to build up a pretty significant reserve in the lodging tax. And so we talked first about how we should allocate the funds, the other 90%, and then we talked a bit about the reserve. Where we landed with the allocation of the funds is that we're really, for at least next year, going to focus on roads and housing. But we also explored whether or not we could use some of those reserves to help us catch up on some of the road projects that we know you all want us to keep working on, particularly Swan Mountain, and obviously now the rock scaling on Dillon Dam.
Yeah.
So we have some conversations we need to have with our childcare partners to make sure that we are saving enough in reserve to fund our tuition programs, at least for the next few years. But then hopefully we can access some of those reserve dollars to fund roads moving forward.
So It's all a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts, and it's sort of like, well, if A happens, then B, but if B doesn't happen, then do we have a C, and do we have a plan D, and what about E, F, and G?
Right.
It's pretty complicated, and all of this is made even more complicated by the economy and the fact that, it's not lost on us that sales tax is down. Obviously, tourism is, looking less strong than it has in prior years. And so we're also trying to make sure that we are factoring in what's happening,
Sure.
bigger picture across the county.
So when we narrow it down to our organization, though, we've been bringing to you guys starting this summer to say, 2026 is looking difficult for us as an organization. We have a lot of competing interests, and our revenues have kind of flattened and gone down, while our expenses, whether it's labor, healthcare is a big one. Just where we are allocating our funds also has a nexus to lodging tax and the projects that we're able to do.
That's right. I mean, across the board, I think I'm sort of thinking about it as county revenue is down about where it was in 2023. But unfortunately, inflation has increased significantly since 2023. So that has brought us to a draft budget that essentially had a $5.5 million deficit. By state law, we have to close that deficit. We are not allowed as a county to deficit spend. So we are trying to make, whatever decisions we can to prioritize the priorities of the community, which, overwhelmingly I still hear are roads and housing. Those are the two things I hear from folks most about. We're trying to prioritize those two decisions, but also make good decisions about all of the other things that counties are required by state law to do.
Yeah.
So lots more conversations to come. We've certainly made progress on that $5.5 million deficit, which I am eternally grateful to our staff for, because it's not been easy. Hopefully we are where we need to be by December 9th. Just a few more deep dives to go.
A few more deep dives, few more key decisions on what happens in 26, and then right when January starts, we're back at it again, trying to plan for 27, and hoping that things change at the state and federal level. And for you guys, I want to say congratulations on SNAP. You guys made a tough decision. Staff jumped in. We had expected that maybe this would go on for a much longer time than it did. Fortunately, it really only cost us about $10,000, but we were able to serve about 100 or so
That's what I heard.
families.
100 families that otherwise wouldn't have gotten their benefit from the federal government in November. Unfortunately, I think this conversation may have just been punted till January. So hopefully we don't see the same thing happen again in January. But the good news is we know how to do it now, and we are ready if we have to do it again.
Awesome. Well, that's a great update.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.